Welcome to the Ultimate Life Television Program, brought to you by Pastor Gracious Selassie Awiye of Treasure House ICGC, where you are treasured and not trashed.
The third thing is allow change. Allow change. People can allow it. But even allowing it is not good enough. Because when you allow change, it could be, okay, I resign myself to the fact. And you can still be swarmed by change when you kind of allow it. But change is extremely important. Without change, you don't see progress. Charles Catherine, the American inventor, engineer, and businessman, and the holder of 186 patents, said this. He said, "The world hates change, yet it is the only thing that is brought progress." The world hates change, yet it is the only thing that is brought progress. And so sometimes we can allow it, but it's kind of like, okay, and some people say, I've got no choice. The fourth point is facilitate change. We need to be part of making it happen. When you make change happen, you find you will enjoy change and you won't be overwhelmed by it. So I want to encourage you to start making change in your own life. Branch out from what you normally wear. You will never change the world if you can't change your shirt, change your environment a bit. Don't set it up and keep it like that. It's not a museum. If you make changes in your life, you learn to accept change. You learn to be part of change in the church. And you learn to be part of change in the world. And change doesn't overwhelm you. You actually enjoy. Some people are like the Lord. They change it not. God doesn't change in his values. Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. God doesn't change his principles or values, but his expressions he changes. Jesus brought so much change that because of that they crucified him. He didn't fit with the establishment. And so you need to facilitate change. Be a part of making it happen. We need to be leaders in change. And when you are leading change, you can change the world. And you enjoy it instead of being overwhelmed. Do you know that many years ago, the potato was only used to feed pigs? Sir Walter Raleigh brought potatoes to England. And when he did, newspapers printed editorials against it. Ministers preached sermons against it. And the general public wouldn't touch it. It was supposed to sterilize the soil in which it was planted. And it was considered to be the cause of major illnesses, even death. Can you imagine that? The humble potato. But there were few nobles who cultivated it. Peasants were against it. It was only used to feed pigs. And a man who was in prison in England, a Frenchman by the name of Antoine Augustin Parmentier, when he was in prison, ate potato, and he loved it. So he went back to France when he was released. He got a grant and he started a laboratory and a farm. And he began to farm potatoes. And he had guards guarding the potatoes at the command of the king. And he cultivated the potatoes and then he served it to people who had special dinners. He would do different dishes and they will eat it, and they loved it, and they wouldn't die. Then everyone saw it as an amazing foodstuff. Then what he did at night was he removed the guards, and then after a couple of weeks they realized that the potatoes were all being dug up by the peasants. And that is exactly what he wanted. And he wrote in his memoirs, and he said, when the people would steal in order to procure potatoes, their popularity is ensured. And he was a leader in instituting change. In 1772, the Paris Faculty of Medicine declared them edible, and they've been a staple food in many households and many fast food outlets as well. What would life be without burger and chips? But it took a leader to do it. Are you leading change, or you are being overwhelmed by change? We need to be leading change and influencing others. How many of you have heard of the name Carl Benz? He brought his first motor car into the streets, and when he did, they complained. Oh, he's noisy, he's dangerous. So the government brought out legislation in Munich. They said you can't drive this car more than 7 kilometers per hour in the city limits, but we'll relax the speed limits to 15 kilometers per hour outside the city limits. But he was very clever. He realized, I will never be able to sell my car if it only does that speed. So he took the mayor of Munich for a drive. But he was very clever. Further down the road, there was a wagon with milk on it and a horse. He said to the milkman, when I come past, I want you to whack your horse and chase after me. So the milkman did just that. And the mayor said, overtake him. He said, sir, there are speed limits. I cannot. Soon after that, the speed limit changed. It's called influence. You need to be a change agent. Don't resist it. Don't just allow it. Don't ignore it. Facilitate it. And when you do, you won't be overwhelmed by it. You will enjoy it, and you'll be used by God to change the world. The second area is many responsibilities. Many responsibilities. Many people have so many responsibilities that they feel overwhelmed by them to a point where they are paralyzed. And this is what happens when you are overwhelmed by responsibilities. You procrastinate, you can't act. And we can't be in a place of procrastination. We have to be in a place where we continue to move forward. But we get some help from God to cope with our responsibilities. Paul felt like that. He felt overwhelmed by the responsibilities. But he didn't procrastinate. He leaned on God and he pressed on. It says, we think you ought to know, dear brothers and sisters, about the trouble we went through in the province of Asia. We were crushed and overwhelmed beyond our ability to endure, and we thought we would never live through it. In fact, we expected to die. But as a result, we stopped relying on ourselves and learned to rely only on God, who raises the dead. And he did rescue us from mortal danger, and he will rescue us again. We have placed our confidence in him, and he will continue to rescue us. If today you are feeling overpowered and overwhelmed, please call on God. Put it in his hands, and don't allow yourself to feel overwhelmed. But then press on and make sure you fulfill your responsibilities, because you can't give God your responsibilities. You can't put them, or let me put it this way, you can put them in his hands and he will give you the help you need. So, let me give you what to do when you feel overwhelmed. Number one, don't take any more things. When you have a lot of responsibilities, do not take on more things when you're overwhelmed. If you are a single person and you are not coping with your life and your thoughts and your finances, for heaven's sake, don't get married. You would say, but she's nice. You are going to pull the two of you down. Wait until you are in a place of strength and you are overcoming, then walk into a marriage and you can take someone with you. If you are in debt today and you are paying of this and paying of that, credit cards, for heaven's sake, don't go out and buy any more things on HP. I'm talking about high purchase. Don't upgrade your house because you are making the matter worse. You are increasing the state of being overwhelmed. You are putting yourself in deeper water. During the 400s, the word whelm means to cover with a dish or to cover with water. Don't cover yourself with a dish of financial problems. Don't get yourself in deep water. Don't take on more than you are dealing with at the moment. That is one way to learn how to overcome. Put it in the hands of God and move forward. Secondly, commit to keep going and complete what you started. What happens when you are overwhelmed by responsibilities is you don't fulfill your responsibilities. You need to see it through. There are many things that prevent us from moving forward. And we can feel such a sense of overwhelm, we don't know what to do. No, don't take on anymore, but see through what you are doing. Thirdly, put everything in the hands of God. Commit it to the Lord. Lean on Him for strength. And you'll find with all these responsibilities overwhelming you, you will get through and you will become an overcomer. The third area that we can be overwhelmed is when we experience continuous storms. Sometimes it feels like you are just setting out and you are embarking on a life's journey, and a storm comes along and it threatens to engulf you. It threatens to drown you. How many of you know storms are often unexpected? You don't plan on them. You go sailing and a storm comes along and it engulfs your life. Just like the virus the world is dealing with today. It came on us suddenly. And you wonder what's happening to me. And our immediate response when we face a storm is to turn back and run away. The psalmist said, "My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen on me. Fear and trembling have beset me. Horror has overwhelmed me. I said, oh, that I had the wings of a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. I would flee far away and stay in the desert. I would hurry to my place of shelter, far from the tempest and storm." Are you overwhelmed today? Do you feel like running away? The worst thing you can do is to run away. Whenever you face a storm, when you face water, when you face a challenge, please don't turn back. You need to keep your course. You need to realize God has called you to go forward, not backwards. And when you are out at sea, you can't all of a sudden turn around and run home. You've got to learn how to manage the water. When Israel was coming from Egypt, they faced water. In front of them was the Red Sea. They were overwhelmed. Egyptian army on their tail, behind them. So water in front. The Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Go straight on." You see, you can be overwhelmed, and when you go straight on, you know what's going to happen? God will deal with your enemies. He will overwhelm them. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 2 to 4. He says, know this day that I am not speaking with your sons who have not known and who have not seen the discipline of the Lord your God, his greatness, his mighty hand, and his outstretched arm, and his signs and his works which he did in the midst of Egypt to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and to all his land, and what he did to Egypt's army, to its horses and its chariots, when he made the water of the Red Sea to engulf them while they were pursuing you, and the Lord completely destroyed them. When you are going through a storm, when you are going through difficult waters, you just keep going. What happens? God deals with your enemies. He gives you the spirit of an overcomer. You don't run away. You don't go back. Let me give you 3 things you need to do. When you are overwhelmed by storms in your life, at work, storms within your own heart, what do? Number 1, don't allow yourself to feel like a victim. It's easy to become a victim. I'm powerless. I don't know what to do. This is bigger than me. No. Say, this is not big for God, and I'm not going to be put off. But the minute you feel like a victim and you allow yourself to get a victim mentality, you are done for. Number 2, face forward. Face forward. The psalmist said he wanted to run into the desert. He wanted to flee like a bird. No, you go forward. God has called you to go forward. And don't run away. You keep your course. The 3rd thing you need to do is to set your sails. Adjust your sails. What do I mean by adjust your sails? When a storm comes and you are sailing in a sailboat, and I hope you know we are in a sailboat called life. All of a sudden, a storm comes and everything begins to go wrong. What we want to do is turn back. But God says, no, you can't turn back. You've got to learn how to take the ropes in your hands and learn how to make adjustments. Because what can happen is when the wind is blowing you from behind, suddenly it starts blowing from the front. Do you know when you are sailing and the wind blows from the front, you can still make progress? If you make the right adjustment to the sail and you use the ropes correctly, you end up keeping your course. 4 ropes you need to adjust. 4 ropes you need to adjust. Number 1, your attitude. You've got to keep a positive attitude. You need to keep an attitude of faith, not fear, not pessimism, not negativity. Number 2, relationships. The people that you have in your life, you've got to keep the right people around you. Because if you get negative people around you, they will tell you to turn back. You remember the 4 guys who brought their friend to Jesus' healing crusade, who was paralyzed, and the place was jam-packed. He felt because they couldn't get in, they should go home. But the friend said, no way. They climbed the roof, tore the roof open, and dropped their sick friend right in front of Jesus. And that day he got his breakthrough. Those are the type of people you need around you. Positive people. People who tell you there's a better future. God has got something in store for you. Let's go forward. Let's go for it. Thirdly, finances. When you are facing a storm, you need to know how to deal with your finances. If you let your finances get into a mess, when you are in a storm, you are adding emotional pressure. The first thing we do when we face emotional challenges is to go out and spend. Please don't do that. You are increasing your state of being overwhelmed. You will never overcome. The 4th area is your thinking. If you set your sail and you adjust these things, you'll be an overcomer and you won't be overcome. The fourth area that we can get overwhelmed is overwhelming evil and guilt. Overwhelming evil and guilt. There is an overwhelming evil that we see in the world. The crime, the violence, the bribery, the corruption, the lies, the perversion of the truth, poverty, abuse, pedophilia. You can feel overwhelmed by it when you watch the news. You ask yourself, is there no good person out there? When you sit quietly and you look inside yourself, you have to admit things aren't altogether perfect in you either. So while we are pointing at everything and asking, is there any good in the world? You can become a cynical Christian. You can't afford to become like that. Because then you'll be like a crab in the torchlight. We don't do anything. We don't say anything. Why? Because the whole world is in a mess. Micah felt like that. He says, I'm overwhelmed with sorrow, sunk in a swamp of despair. I'm like someone who goes to the garden to pick cabbages and carrot and corn and returns empty-handed, finds nothing for soup or sandwich or salad. There's not a decent person in sight. Right living humans are extinct. They are all out for one another's blood. Animals preying on each other. They've all become experts in evil. Corrupt leaders demand bribes. The powerful rich make sure they get what they want. You can't look at life and you can't be put off people. You can be put off yourself and you can be paralyzed. Let me give you some things that you need to do. Number one, stay in fellowship. When you're overwhelmed by evil and the guilt in your own life, don't stay away from the house of the Lord. Stay in fellowship. In Acts chapter 2 verse 1, it says, when the day of Pentecost came, they were all together. Where? In one place. All together in one place. People aren't perfect, but you need them around you. If it wasn't for David's men, he would have died in that battle. They rescued him, but it was men who came to his rescue. They rescued him. Number two, when you look at life, don't become hopeless. Stop talking negatively about everything. Don't get hopeless about people. Not everyone is bad. There is a lot of good in the world. The church is not bad. It's not filled with hypocrites. It is filled with sinners saved by grace, and is the greatest place to be. Mahatma Gandhi said this, and I quote, he said, you must not lose faith in humanity. Humanity is an ocean. If a few drops of the ocean are dirty, the ocean does not become dirty. We know everyone is a sinner, but what he's saying is not everyone is evil to the core. People have got good-naturedness in them, and there is hope. If you get hopeless about the church and about life, you'll be overwhelmed. The third thing is you need to find forgiveness in Christ. If you are struggling with your own guilt, you need to find forgiveness in Christ. The psalmist says when he was overwhelmed with guilt, he went to God and he found forgiveness. Psalm 65 verse 3 says, when we were overwhelmed by sins, you forgave our transgressions. And so if you're overwhelmed by guilt, bring it to God. Don't allow it to swallow you. No one is perfect, but I believe the world is a great place to be. The church is the best place to be. We all need people around us. Even Jesus needed people around him. You know, in the Garden of Gethsemane, he says, my heart is overwhelmed. Stay with me and watch. He didn't say, come and give me advice. Just be there for me. You know what? We don't have to be each other's counselors. Just be there. Just be there. When you are overwhelmed, the best place to be is in the house of God. God has destined for you not to be overwhelmed, but to overcome. You know what? I want to encourage you. to bring your life to God, who can help you and give you relief and victory if you're overwhelmed. And this is how you overcome. You overcome by leaning on Him and others, and setting your sails daily and embracing change in your life. What an exciting life we can live with God on our side, with lots of responsibility. We can still move forward. We can overcome, not be overwhelmed.
Thank you for watching the Ultimate Life television program. We hope you have been blessed by the teaching. Tune in to our next program on the same channel and the same time next week. You are cordially invited to visit Treasure House ICGC for our Sunday morning church services at the New Horizon Center, South Lodge Avenue, adjacent to the Pollards Hill Library, CR4 1LT. For ministry products and other information, please contact us on 0208 355 3461 or send an email to pastor@treasurehouseiCGC.co.uk. You may also visit our website www.treasurehouseiCGC.co.uk. Our service times are as follows: Sunday 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and Wednesday 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. You can also download our ministry app, Gracious Awaye, to listen to Pastor Gray's messages from the Apple Store or Google Play Store. May God richly bless you.